What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Buckeye-Film-Breakdown. As always, I'm Jeremy. Opposite side of the screen, we got Coach Slate. If you are on Substack, part of that community, enjoy the show. If you are listening on YouTube, enjoy the preview. We wanted to hop on here, tie up some stuff we talked about last time with the staff makeup for the Buckeyes this year. We're starting to see some trends, some things not come to fruition that we thought were going to. Buckeyes get a portal boom, probably their last one, and the schedule's out. And so now we have dates to go with all of our big noon kickoffs. Last time we were on, we talked about the possible addition of Marty Biaggi from Notre Dame. Since that episode, it sounds like the math doesn't math is probably the easiest way to put it. Sounds like he's got a rather large buyout, especially for a special teams guy. So it doesn't look like he's going to be joining after all. Not to say that there's not going to be a special teams coach added. We don't really know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk out there. I'll let you do a little more of a deep dive onto what you're hearing about contracts and that type of thing. And what's Coach Day trying to do?
Yeah. Well, when it comes to, I think it's Biaggi, however you say his last name, I don't want to disrespect him, but when you talk about Notre Dame, like Notre Dame's a private institution, so they don't really have to put out their figures as to what they're paying their coaches. And so, Football Scoop did the top paid special teams coordinators of 2025, and he's not on that list, and it's because Notre Dame doesn't have to put out how much they're paying him. And so his buyout must be pretty high because he's well respected and he's one of the best in the country. So I imagine he's making well over $500,000, probably in the 750, between 750 and $1 million. I mean, he's that well respected in the game. And so if the buyout is going to be that high, I totally understand why Coach Day maybe not want to go that route. And so I fully expect there to be a special teams coordinator on the staff. Whether, like we talked about before we hopped on here, whether that is, Gunnar Daniel sticking around, whether that is Nate Ebner being the guy, whether that is, them actually going out and finding somebody maybe from a smaller school. Who knows? But I fully expect Coach Day to go do that. I think what the people have been saying is that this is something that he really wants to do. So I fully expect there to be a full-time special teams coordinator. But it's interesting to see how the staff is shaking out. So if you look at the offensive staff, obviously we just hired Arthur Smith as the offensive coordinator. I'm excited, when our guy Jake gets back from Dallas, and we're able to, dive deep into some of the stuff that he did with the Titans and some of the stuff he did with the Falcons and dive a little bit more into his offense. Like, it just makes more and more sense the more I watch film, the more I think about it. So I think it's going to be a good fit. But you look at our offense right now. You got the head coach of the offense and Arthur Smith. You got the offensive line coach and Coach Bowen. Obviously, we got Coach Keenan Bailey with the tight ends, Coach Locke with the running backs, Coach Hank with the wide receivers, and Coach Fessler with the quarterbacks. So you have a head coach of the offense, and you have 5 guys who can go recruit. Where Coach Smith can now just be the guy who is scheming all day long, right?
Yep.
And then when the recruits come to campus, he can recruit the crap out of them, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's kind of like what Coach Knowles did anyway when he was here. I would think if Coach Day wants to be that CEO type, he would want Coach Patricia to have that same model, right? Because if I'm Coach Day, I want Coach Patricia around for at least 2 more years.
Yeah.
And so what can we do to lighten his load? And so I I'm just if we're doing that right now, the defensive staff is made up of Coach Johnson, who has an expiring contract coming up.
Yep.
Coach Laurinaitis, who's the linebackers, Coach Walt, and Coach G. Right. So that leaves another spot potentially where you could have another defensive line coach. We all know Coach Johnson is 72, 73 years old, right? He's getting out there, same age as my dad, right? I can't imagine my dad being out there full-time recruiting right now, right? Like you are a special human being if you can continue to be out there doing that. And so I understand there's rumblings out there that Coach Johnson, if you hire somebody else, maybe this is not for me anymore. Like I want to go out on my own terms, which I get, you have earned the right to do that. but you want Coach Patricia to be in the best possible spot. And so to me, that just opens a door for, a contingency plan for when Coach Johnson finally decides to hang it up. That you can get somebody in here like a Alan Clark, who we had here previously, somebody who can coach his defensive ends or the defensive tackles, and you can lighten the load on Coach Johnson, still pay him the exact same, and you can do some more things to help yourself for when that day finally comes.
Right.
I we all want Coach Johnson, the legend that he is, to stick around forever,
Sure.
but he's not going to. And so what is the plan in place for that? Because you've brought it up so many times since we started this podcast, the negative recruiting that goes on when they talk about Coach Johnson. This is going to be his last year. This is going to be his last year. Every school negatively recruits by saying that. And so I think this is a perfect opportunity for Coach Day to really fill in that gap with another coach. And now you've got 6 coaches on each side of the ball. And you're doing something that not many colleges are doing right now. And you're following that NFL model. And I just think that would be the way to go. I don't know about you, man, but I think Coach Day has got an opportunity to really, set a new precedent in college football and really follow this NFL model with a special teams coordinator, with the head coach of the offense and the defense. And he can be the true CEO. And I think it would be awesome. But, that's me, man. What do you think?
I agree wholeheartedly. I mean, you're already seeing Ryan Day set a trend to go get NFL level coordinators and not guys who coordinated for a year, guys who have legitimate, not only coordinator experience, but NFL head coaching experience. Now, yes, both of these guys, Coach Patricia, Coach Smith, had less than ideal experiences as head coaches. But when you look at what each of those guys can do when they are just focused on one side of the ball, it's scary. Arthur
Yeah.
Smith had NFL OC interviews in this cycle.
Yes, he did.
We talked about it when we did our reaction episode. I think it was the Eagles and the Titans. Both, the Titans have Cam Ward, another high draft pick this year. That's a program, that's a team that can build something pretty quickly. The Eagles, last year's Super Bowl champions, less than ideal this year, but again, ton of talent, ton of offensive weapons. And this dude chose to come back to college. So you're starting to see that precedent already be set. So yeah, take full advantage of the unlimited coaches, the being 10 on the road. Get your best 10 out there. And the Larry Johnson thing, you absolutely have to have a contingency. The last thing you want is to start to lose guys because of him just up and retiring or his contract expiring. But you also, and I don't think it would ever be like this because I think Larry Johnson is a class act.
Absolutely.
You don't want to get caught in a situation like the Cleveland Browns did. And I wish Jake was on here to dive into this part of it just a little bit. You hire a head coach. Everybody thought you hired the head coach that was going to keep your defensive coordinator there. And now your defensive coordinator is going to walk. You don't want Larry to walk. Larry left Penn State bitter, and rightfully so, and came to Ohio State, and boom, gets a Bosa brother. So he's earned the right. You want him to be around as long as he wants to, but you cannot get caught without a plan. So I think Ryan Day has proven to us he always is a step ahead, especially when he can do the CEO thing like he's doing now. And I think it was Dave Biddle. I heard him say today, Ryan Day has a history of nailing his coordinator hires. People are sleeping on Arthur Smith. So I think you got to have a plan in place. I think that, there may be other stuff going on behind the scenes we still haven't heard anything about. Not that, we have inside access or anything, but, normally you catch wind when things are happening. So I'm sure Ryan Day has 5 different plans if any coach on his staff were to leave.
Yeah. It's just crazy to think about, man. The unlimited coaches just provides, these college coaches with so many different opportunities. And now with NIL, you're going to see teams and coaches start going this way because
Yeah.
it's going to ease the the pain of recruiting for these head coaches and
Yeah.
for these coordinators who are making so much money to go out here and produce and get stops and put up points. And then they also got to turn around and be the guys that are recruiting as well. It's not an easy thing to do, man. And
No.
so this is going to allow them to really focus on doing their job and letting these young guys on the staff really go out there and take care of the recruiting side of things, man. So I like that the NCAA actually did. I think this is something that they actually got right, which is shocking.
Yeah, for sure. One last note. It's so crazy to me in the day and age where these high school kids, especially, seem to be relating to the Lincoln Rileys, the Dan Lannings, the younger guys. To see Larry Johnson still just have that pull to these kids, it's awesome to see, and speaks volumes about Larry Johnson, the coach, and Larry Johnson, the person, obviously, because let's be honest, there have been a few seasons in the last 5 where the recruiting hasn't necessarily been on par with what we expect. We've had some big misses, especially at D tackle, but we've gotten so much production out of dudes who he did go after. So it's like he knows what he's doing. And
Yeah,
look at like Caden McDonald. Caden McDonald was somewhat under the radar. I mean, he was pretty highly
yeah,
recruited, but he wasn't the big name.
yeah,
And he wasn't that Marvin Wilson who ended up being an edge, but like it's really cool to see, because obviously when Larry Johnson got hired by Urban Meyer, I was ecstatic.
yeah,
And rightfully
absolutely.
so. So yeah, obviously we'll keep you guys in tune to anything that comes out on that. If any transitions happen, any hires happen, we'll continue to pop out, reaction episodes for you guys. Buckeyes had a boom today. We talked about this guy vaguely. Vashawn Washington, Springfield, Ohio product, graduating from Dartmouth. So I mean, my man is graduating from an Ivy. And we've talked about ad nauseum, with Aaron Scott and those types of guys. Springfield is a rough area, but to be from Springfield, you're built different. And for this kid to go from Springfield to an Ivy and get to come back to Ohio State, make some money, wear scarlet and gray for your last year of eligibility. It doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, and I had an opportunity to actually coach against him my first year at Findlay when we made it to the third round of the playoffs. He was starting, he was on that Springfield Wildcats team, and he's just an athlete, man. He's just a lanky athlete at the time. Obviously, he's grown into his body. He transitioned to an offensive lineman during his junior year at Dartmouth. Like he wasn't always an offensive lineman; he actually played tight end, and so he grew into this body type that he is. So he played some tight end for the first few games of his junior year. Then he started playing guard. And then they put him out at tackle, and he started out there for his entire senior season. Only allowed 1 sack. I mean, he's just a really, really, really good player, man. A really good athlete. Obviously, coming from Springfield with Coach Douglas, who does a great job at Springfield High School. Just pumps out Division I talent on a consistent basis. It's a very disciplined program that he's coming from. Obviously, graduating from an Ivy League school, he's very bright, very smart, and so this is going to be a good depth piece. Don't know what he's going to be like. Is he going to come in and start? I have no idea, but he will come in and definitely be able to compete. He is on scholarship, so this is something like they see something in him. This isn't something where oh, he's a preferred walk on. No, he is probably the final scholarship. The scholarship puts them at 90. And so this this is probably it for them, and they see something in him, and he's going to come in and compete, man. So I think this is a good pickup. These are the type of guys when you have a full offensive line room and you feel really good about the guys that you have. These are the people that you take a swing on. And he's an Ohio kid who probably dreamt of being a Buckeye, and now he gets to live out that opportunity. And if he can be a rotational piece, he gets an opportunity to live it out, like you said, make some money, and put himself in the best position to play on Sundays, man. So it's a win-win for everybody involved, and I hope he comes in and does a really good job of representing himself well because he's got all the talent in the world, and I think he'll be a good depth and rotational piece for us.
Yeah, I mean 6'5", 290, like you said, has played guard, tackle, blocking tight end. He's a grader, man. I mean, we always talk about like Tyler Bowen has a type, man. He wants
Yeah,
these just big physical hit you in the mouth dudes. 1 sack and over 700 snaps. What I am obviously interested to see is the transition from the FCS level, especially in the IVs, to a D1 level, because there is technically a spot open on the O line, and worst case scenario, depth piece, take up some practice reps. Best case scenario, you get Jimmy Simmons again.
yeah,
Everybody, when Jimmy Simmons came from San Diego State, everybody was like, "Oh my God, it's San Diego State. This guy sucks." And this dude just got taken by the Chiefs in the first round. I mean, it's awesome. Worst case scenario again, like I said, you gave a scholarship to a kid. I mean, you're not going to play all 90 anyway.
yeah,
So yeah, that should tie up the roster though. And obviously as the season gets closer, we will dive into, depth chart projections, that type of stuff. You're just so far out. You do have the grad transfer window still, coming up, which again, you might add something, but being at 90 though, I don't think you do. I think you are
yeah.
set in stone. Speaking of season getting closer though, we finally have a true schedule. The dates are out to go with. Pretty tough schedule, man. 7 home games, 5 road games. I saw the number and I don't remember the exact number, but it's like 4,400 miles traveled for the away games.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
crazy.
obviously, welcome to the new Big Ten.
Yeah.
Non-conference of Ball State, Texas, Kent State. I believe there is still a statistic out there. I'd have to see that every time the Buckeyes beat Kent State, they win a natty.
Huh. Yeah, we have to look that up.
I know they did in 02 and I know they did in 14. But
Yeah,
I
well,
can't.
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I will have to dive into that deeper for you guys. Season starts with Ball State at home, then the showdown. This schedule is brutal, and obviously you get Ball State to warm up, then you go to Texas to play Arch Manning in the Longhorns.
Yeah, man. Listen. The schedule's tough, man. Obviously the beginning of the year you've got Texas. Obviously the Texas game was a good game, and I'm not, me, man. I'm not a doom and gloom. I've been reading, oh, the Buckeyes 7-5, 8-4. There's a lot of people who are, looking at the schedule and saying it's hard. Yes, it's very difficult, but at the same time, like, yeah, we have to play these teams, but these teams also have to play Ohio State too. Like that's the one thing I want people to remember. Like this Ohio State team's going to be pretty good. Um, Texas, like I think Texas has got to refill. They've got to replace a lot. I think it's still going to be a good game. Playing down there in Austin's not an easy thing to do. And so the Buckeyes are going to have to come out and play clean. I'm excited to see how Arch has grown. Like that's
Yes.
what I will want to see. How has he grown? By the end of the season, he was a much different player than he was at the beginning of the season. Obviously, look back at that Michigan Bowl game, he played much better than he did at the beginning of the season. So I'm excited to see how he is to start the season. So that's something I'm looking forward to in that matchup, no doubt.
We all know how much I love Arch Manning. So yeah, I am 100% interested to see the evolution though. So every time the Buckeyes play Kent State, they play for a natty.
Okay. All right.
They have the loss to LSU in there.
Okay.
But the Miami game, the LSU game, and then the first playoff, they played Kent State.
Okay.
That's the only 3 times they've played Kent State.
All right.
So
So let's play for another natty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they get the Golden Flashes the week after Texas at home, followed by Illinois. You know, Burt is always going to do Burt things. You can never know what to expect. Um, Following week, they head to Iowa, who I think will be a preseason top 25 team. I don't put a ton of stake in preseason rankings because by that point, Iowa could be 3-3 or 3-4. I mean, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Iowa's always going to be a tough game. I think I just got a lot of respect for them and that program. They're always going to play the Buckeyes tough, but I think it's going to come down to, talent. I think it's going to come down to execution. I think the Buckeyes are going to be a much more disciplined team next year. I
Yes.
think the last couple seasons we've shown that. And so I think it will be a good game though. It's never an easy place to go play.
No.
And so I'm excited for that matchup. And the program I got a crap ton of respect for. Defense is always going to come out ready to play, and so their defensive line is going to get after the quarterback. Julian Sand's going to have to come out ready to go, and so that's going to be a good one, man. That's not an easy matchup to me. That's a tougher matchup than some of the games that we have in the back half of the season, but I think the Buckeyes will be. I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, so they follow up the road trip to Iowa, the Terrapins of Maryland at home, and then October 17th, before the bye week, the Hoosiers in Bloomington. Who would have ever thought that this might be the most intriguing game on the schedule?
Yeah, man, it is definitely going to be intriguing. I want to. I just want to know what Indiana's going to look like
Yeah,
without Fernando Mendoza. I want to know what that defense is going to look like without Kamara up front, without I forget the linebacker's
Aiden
name,
Fisher.
without Aiden Fisher, without D'Angelo Pons, without those guys. I want to see what they are going to look like. Hopefully the Browns draft a couple of those guys, but I want to see what they're going to look like because they're not going to be the same team.
No.
Obviously, they're going to have to reload, and we know that Coach Sig is really, really good at doing that. But man, you're losing Cooper, you're losing Surratt, you're losing Mendoza, you're losing Hemby in the backfield. Like they
Yeah,
have to replace a
a
ton.
lot.
And so I'm not saying that Coach Sig has shown that he can reload and they'll
Oh
be
yeah.
just fine. No doubt about it. But to be the reigning undefeated national champ, that this is the first time that Indiana's going to have expectation now. And
Right.
so, how are they respond to that expectation? I still think they're going to be a double-digit win
Oh yeah.
team. There's no doubt. I think Coach Signetti is one of the best, if not the best, coach in the country right now. I mean, there's hard to argue that. And so that'll be interesting, man. And with Hoover at quarterback, I think Hoover is very good, but is he Fernando?
Right.
Will he go out there and execute like Fernando did? So that'll be fun, man. Like you said, Bloomington. Whoever would have thought like this will be a tough road matchup for us.
So then we get the bye week before a Halloween showdown. I'm gonna have to assume it will be at night our time against
Yeah.
USC, who brought in a stud recruiting class, but
Yep.
with that comes youth. And then back to back, man, you go to USC and then you get the Ducks the first weekend of November. We finally get to see one of those West Coast teams. Now, obviously, early November is not insanely cold in Ohio, but there's a chance you could see some snow or something like that. And I would really like to see what you get out of Oregon because obviously Oregon's strength is going to be their secondary and their wide receivers this year. What
Yeah.
neutralizes those two groups? Weather.
Yeah. They are going to be definitely animated for this game. They're going to be hyped. Coach Landing's going to definitely have one of those um pregame speeches fired up and ready to
Oh yeah.
go coming into Columbus. I'm excited for this matchup, man. Dante Moore is going to have a lot to prove and I think it's going to be one. This will probably be the one game that I'm looking forward to the most, just because I know how much the Buckeyes want to prove. And I think this will be a game. Obviously, all the games in this schedule are going to be tough ones, but I think this will be a game where the Buckeyes will feel like they have something to prove. Obviously, Indiana, USC, Texas, those are all going to be games. And the team up north, well, excuse me, Peter, I said I wouldn't call him that anymore. Michigan. Um, they feel like they've got something to prove in all of those games, but I think this one is going to have a little bit bigger stakes for whatever reason, and so I'm excited for this one, man. I think this is going to be it's going to be a really really good game, man. I think Coach Lanning's going to have him fired up, and Coach Day is going to have him ready to go.
Yeah, and then to continue with storylines, on November 14th, you get the return of new Northwestern offensive coordinator Chip Kelly.
There we go.
Buckeyes go to Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, the Nebraska Fighting Jeff Harrimans. But no, Nebraska's another one of those teams, man. They're going to be gritty. They've shown that against Ohio State, and for whatever reason, they just always play the Buckeyes tough. And then senior night, or senior day on the 28th against Michigan. Michigan's got a pretty rough schedule too, but somehow they only got 4 road games, which is pretty wild to look at. And obviously, again, we'll dive into everybody, the Big Ten as a whole, once we get closer. But yeah, so it's going to be a gauntlet. What are your thoughts, just kind of roundabout on the schedule, from start to finish?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt, man. I think it's a tough schedule. The one thing that, I will caution Buckeye fans on, and including myself, because when I first saw the schedule, I thought the same thing, like, oh man, this is really tough. They said the same thing about this year's schedule. This is really tough. And then, Penn State had some rough patches, and it just didn't turn out to be the schedule that we thought it was going to be. It could very well happen again this year. And so I think we just need to make sure that we take it one game at a time. We lock in and focus on each and every opponent. And I think Coach Day has done a fantastic job of making sure that we do that. Each game is going to be pivotal. And if we drop one, it's not the end of the world with the expanded playoff. So it will be okay. We just need to take care of business in the Big Ten. Like, we just have to take care of business when we get to Big Ten play. And we obviously got to beat Michigan. Like that is one of the things that I am obviously the most concerned with. But we just got to take care of business, man. But it's definitely a tough schedule. I think it's Ohio State and Michigan got the short end of the stick when it came to scheduling. Because you look at Penn State's schedule, and Penn State's got a cakewalk.
Yeah,
yeah. Coach Campbell walked into a 10-win season,
and that's going to be obviously a much improved team too. I mean, I'm glad, that Ohio State doesn't get them this year. And then just one real quick little nugget, Bachman Miller to Washington, that came out today. Pretty much ties up all of the outgoing guys finding homes. So yeah, that's kind of where things are at in the Buckeye world right now. And obviously we'll keep you guys up to date, and don't forget to tap in Buckeye-Film-Breakdown, join the community. Cool little chat like I talk about all the time. We literally throw one-liners out there just in between, stuff at work or anything, and just build a discussion off of it. So with that, we will see you guys later in the week.